And welcome everyone to today's Links Universal TA event. My name is Long Dang. I'll be providing technical support today. So if you have any questions about the platform, please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly in the chat. Disclaimer, this presentation was produced and funded in whole with federal funds from the U.S. Department of Education under contract number 919-900-20A-0014 /919-900-22F-0346 with the American Institutes for Research, AIR. Carolyn Lampila serves as the contracting officer's representative. The content of this presentation does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the U.S. Department of Education, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. With that being said, I'll hand it over to our moderator, Marcella Movitt.
Thanks, Long, and thanks everyone for joining us for today's webinar, Strategies for Teacher Retention, a State's Perspective. Today's February 22nd, 2023. Long, could we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. Today's webinar is part of our Universal Technical Assistance webinars, the Wednesday webinar series. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I want to share a little bit about it. So this monthly series covers topics that matter most to the field. We identify those in collaboration with Octave, feedback from all of you, things that we hear are really critical to the field. It supports states in building their capacity in these important areas. And as an FYI for all of you, if you're not already familiar with the series, all of our webinars are recorded, and we are making sure that those are available to you on the Links YouTube channel. We have several that were recently added, so we really encourage you to check those out. Before we jump into today's presentation and hear from our wonderful presenters, I wanted to share with you some resources that are currently available through Links. Through our Links state resources, specifically the federal initiatives, we have our Teacher Effectiveness in Adult Education project that has a project page that you can check out with many resources to support your work. We encourage you to look specifically at the Adult Education Teacher Induction Toolkit. Wonderful resources there to support you in your efforts. Within the Links resource collection, we also encourage you to check out the mentoring guide for teacher induction. That also comes out of that same project, Teacher Effectiveness in Adult Education, but you can access it through our resource collection. And last but not least, if you want to continue some of the discussions that we start here, we encourage you to look in the Links community and join or check out some of the discussions that are going on in the professional development group. On the right-hand side of our page, on the screen, you will see the QR codes to access federal initiatives, access the resource collection, and to join a community. Okay, on the next slide, thanks. So today's agenda, in today's session, we're going to identify obstacles and opportunities across the spectrum of teacher recruitment and retention. We'll offer and exchange potential strategies to address the interconnected issues of student retention and teacher retention, and we'll engage in peer discussion and reflection about retention practices at the program and state levels. So as you can tell, we have some wonderful materials coming up. I'm really excited to introduce to you our two presenters today. With us, we have Kathleen Porter, who has been involved with adult education and workforce development in the San Diego area since 1987. She currently serves as the Executive Director of Career Technical Adult and Alternative Education in the Poway Unified School District. She is the past state president of the California Council of Adult Education. We'll also be hearing from Dawn Hughes, who is the Executive Director for the Central Illinois Adult Education Service Center, which is part of the Illinois Professional Development Network, which provides professional development opportunities for adult education programs funded by the Illinois Community College Board. Two fantastic presenters, and I'm going to turn it over to them. Kathleen?
Thank you, Marcella, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon as we explore aspects of recruiting and retaining talented teachers and explore together some of the practices that are showing promise to find, attract, onboard, and keep talented staff members, particularly teachers. In this segment of the webinar, I have just about 30 minutes with you to think about some innovative approaches to recruiting and retaining talented teachers. During this portion of the webinar, we have 3 objectives. First, we'll identify some of the challenges we're facing in recruiting and retaining talented people. Next, we'll examine several strategies that are having success. And finally, we will consider how some of those strategies might have potential for implementation in your environment. Now, I understand that some of you are program directors and some of you are state directors and staff. So as we think through some of these elements, I realize that we're going to be thinking in multi-levels. Some of us might be thinking directly about how we're going to implement things in our agencies. And some of us might be thinking about how we can highlight and spotlight things that are happening. And so we can share those across our networks so other people can learn and figure out how to implement some of these practices. So let's start with a poll. Thank you for putting that up. I'd like you to think about in what areas do you think you're experiencing the biggest challenges in finding and recruiting and retaining talented staff members, and particularly teachers. Is it in the area of finding? Is it in the area of attracting, onboarding, or retaining? So if you can tell me what you think might be the biggest area or areas that you're facing the most difficulty. I'll give you just a few minutes, a few seconds to respond.
Looks like the results are slowing down a little bit, so I'll go ahead and end the poll, Kathleen, and go ahead and share the results.
Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we almost have a 3-way tie. So it looks like retaining is the #1 area of interest, but finding and attracting are close seconds. And then the onboarding seems to be something that we feel like is more comfortable for us. So thank you for participating. Now I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive in this and really think about what specifically might be some of the obstacles that we're facing in each of these areas. So if you pinpointed one of these areas, finding, attracting, onboarding, or retaining staff members, what do you think is getting in the way? What are the obstacles that we're facing in that area? If you can just post your thoughts in the chat, or if you're brave, you can unmute and tell us. I'll give you a couple seconds here to respond. Paying low wages, part-time versus full-time. Yes, and I see pay is coming up again. Are there other ideas? Lack of benefits. Okay, so with our part-time employees, sometimes we don't have the ability to offer benefits. Would like to know about hourly rates in other states. Really good. Low wages and job stability. Low wages and lack of benefits. So this is coming up consistently. And Jeanette talks about attracting. The majority of adult ed positions are less than part-time. Yes. Job instability. Agree with low wages, limited availability of part-time adjuncts. Safety concerns. Interesting, Wendy. Oh, and then Carla talks about needing to be a one-size-fits-all and not a specialist. Rural areas, yes, Nancy, reaching out to those hard-to-reach areas. Inability to travel. Insufficient resources, yes, okay. So yes, we have a lot of barriers that are getting in the way of our ability to really find, attract, and retain teachers. So I'm going to share with you some of the results that we did a survey of adult education administrators. So this was a survey through the Association of California School Administrators. It was conducted last spring and summer. And we were looking for what's getting in the way, what are the biggest areas. And so as you can see, some of the obstacles that were cited most frequently in that survey were general staffing shortages, so everywhere. District HR processes are slow, and we recognize that this is probably related to the general staffing shortages everywhere. So even our HR departments are maybe running with a skeleton crew. District hiring guidelines are restrictive. Unclear credential requirements. So in California, we have a requirement for teacher credentials in many of our agencies, and low salaries that came up. Teacher salaries may not be competitive, particularly true with some of our CTE teachers. They may not be competitive with what they would be earning if they were in business or industry. Part-time hours we talked about, and lack of information about openings. So this is even getting the word out. So how do people know? So historically, when we advertise for teacher openings, we might do that in different places than we would advertise for other folks. And so I think if we think about how do these survey responses compare to what you had pointed out, these are very similar to what you all had pointed out, that we've really got a lot of these issues around how do we pay teachers, and thinking about part-time employment and making that attractive to people. So I'm going to push us forward, and we're going to hop into thinking about finding and attracting specifically, and then we'll move on to think about other aspects of retention. So we'll take a look at some of the promising practices that are happening. So I'm wondering in the chat if you can just share with us an innovative practice that either you're implementing or you might be able to implement, or maybe that you've heard about being implemented to find and attract people to us, teachers to us. Anything that you're doing or that you're aware of happening in your areas that is working to find and attract. I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let you just type in the chat. Oh, Laura, great idea. Reaching out to newly retired teachers from K-12. So that's something that's working. Virtual classroom for corrections. Instructor is in Colorado, but the incarcerated folks are in Wyoming. We're talking about big sharing here. That's excellent. hybrid teaching opportunities and outside our state for teachers, great. And encourage programs to share positions to create, yes. So these shared positions reaching outside of your agency, or we're hearing about even reaching outside of our state. So thank you, Jeanette, New Hampshire. And then matching teachers with the populations. So Lisa, you might want to tell us a little bit more about what you're finding there. Connecting with master's level education programs to recruit staff and offer practicum hours. Excellent. So these are all things that are working and very innovative approaches, I would say, to be able to hire somebody from outside your state. I love it. So some of the things that we've identified that are working related to finding people, related to getting the word out. So advertising teacher openings on our school or our district websites, in our catalogs. So when we're publishing catalogs of our offerings, advertising our openings, we have a marquee in front of our building. And so we will advertise openings on our marquee. We're using yard signs. So these are like the realtor signs that you put out in front, or election signs that you put out in front of a building to advertise for openings or to say that we're hiring. We've also made banners that have gone on fences around the campuses so we can put it around our community. We've worked with our business partners. So the Chamber of Commerce will have a link to our job openings so that when business people are going to the Chamber of Commerce, if they think, hey, I might want to work, there's an opportunity for them to link directly to our sites. We're putting QR codes on a lot of the materials that will link to position descriptions and application processes so that folks have a way to maybe just quickly access openings that we have. When we talk about our business and community partners or our community connections, I think advertising our openings in newsletters, either our newsletters that go out to partners or in their newsletters, so that we can make use of maybe a larger network. We are certainly mentioning at any of our partner meetings, attending chamber mixers and trying to recruit people there, letting our other regional schools and staff know about openings that we have. We've been successful in cobbling together a couple of jobs across agencies. So if one person has a part-time position, another person has a part-time position, is there a way that we can cobble together a few jobs to make a full-time position? Offering training programs for hard to fill positions. So we're in the business of adult education. So if we're having trouble finding people for a particular position, can we actually offer a training program for folks to learn how to do this? This includes a special ed instructional aid program, a bus driver training program, campus security specialist training programs, and health aides for our campuses. So just trying to get creative with some of these training programs and helping our district solve problems of hard to fill positions as well. So next, when we think about attracting and some of the creative approaches that might be working in different areas, how do we address lower salaries, particularly in these career technical education courses? One thing that we've been able to do is to hire instructors as CTE subject matter experts. And in this case, we've been able to conduct a regional salary study so that we can pay teachers not at the teacher salary level, but at the level that they would be making in business and industry. And that's been a really important factor in our nursing program. So we have a nurse assistant program that requires the instructor to be an RN. And so when we look at where, what are RNs making, it's a lot more than our teachers are making. And so being able to negotiate something like that, incentives to obtain credentials. So our district was able to negotiate with our teachers union, providing an incentive. It totals up to $3,000 for our teachers to get, for our new employees to get a teaching credential, because credentials are required for us. And so that's that covers their time and also the cost of the credential program. We talked about leveraging systems so that we're looking at, and you all gave some good examples of hiring across agencies. And so one way to leverage systems might be to have one of your partners or one of your regional schools hire somebody full-time so they're able to provide the benefits, and then contract with other schools or programs in your region so that the person that we're trying to attract to us is working full-time and is able to obtain benefits. So some creative approaches. Let's see, so Wendy, you're talking about where are you finding the funding to approach pay differently and offer incentives? Yeah, that's a really good question. So, you know, we have been able to offer the programs with our existing funding sources. And so we have enough students in the programs that paying teachers a little bit more has been possible for us. So in California, we have a variety of different funding sources. Of course, we have the federal level, the Workforce and Innovations and Opportunities Act, our WIOA funds. We have Perkins funding for our CTE programs. And then we also have the California Adult Education Program funding that comes to California, which I know is a little unique. And so every state, I'm sure, has different funding sources. I would say that another way to look at it is to look at partners. So sometimes systems can partner together to offer programs. This leveraging systems idea, if we weren't able to hire a teacher, for example, because the teacher didn't have a teaching credential, could we partner with another agency to bring somebody in to offer that program and contract with that program? So I'm going to push us forward here, and we're going to go into thinking about onboarding and keeping talented people. And so here we'll take a minute to hear from you about any innovative practices that you're implementing or thinking you might be able to implement related to onboarding and keeping employees. So is there something that you guys are, or you folks are doing now that is working related to onboarding and keeping employees? Again, you can just type in the chat. Oh, this is a great idea, Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing this one. Veteran teachers mentoring novice teachers. Yeah, so having these kinds of mentorship opportunities available to teachers, great idea. Anybody else? If anybody's typing right now, I don't want to cut you off. I'm going to move on, but I'll keep an eye on the chat. So if you're typing, just continue to type. So when we think about onboarding, a couple of things that are working. In our district, we decided that just sending people to our personnel department, even though we love our human resources department, wasn't working very well. And so we really just said, you know, we're going to be the concierge approach to personnel, where we're going to walk people through personnel, will gather paperwork, will schedule the appointments. And so it's basically ushering somebody through that whole hiring process. We found that if we were sending people to personnel, that things would, there was a bottleneck. So either our applicant wouldn't have all the paperwork together, or our human resources department might have a pile of people that they were working on. And so it just took an awfully long time. So having us usher people through and really maintaining that relationship with our new hires was effective for us. I want to spend a little time talking about this notion of essential learnings. And so this is an approach to onboarding. And so rather than having an orientation that's led by one person, we started implementing a series of meetings that a new employee attends over a period of 2 weeks, usually. So it's kind of a checklist. And it's designed to help the new employee not only gain understanding of the organization as a whole, but it also helps them to make relationships and build connections with multiple employees. And so the first 2 weeks that a person is on staff, they have a series of meetings with key people in the organization to learn about the organization overall. I usually meet with a new person on the first day that they're there, and I provide that big overview and context. So I talk about the overview of our district, where our organization fits within our district. I talk about our culture, our mission, our vision, our values, what we read over the summer and how that's shaping our beliefs and the themes for professional development for the year, all of those kinds of things. And then I will meet with the person at the end of the 2-week period to kind of debrief with them about what they found. In operational awareness, we cover things like work hours, where to park, what meetings they should attend, the calendar and the schedule, their mailbox, where are they getting their mail, their name badge, where do they get office supplies, phones, how to set up voicemail, paychecks, paydays, how to retrieve a paycheck stub, all of those operational awareness pieces. And then we have program area leaders that meet with folks to give them a broad understanding of the organization, from academic programs, career technical education programs, alternative programs, and community education programs that we offer. And then finally, we go over emergency preparedness. So we talk about the drills, when to expect the drills, whose team are they on for emergency preparedness. But it's just this big, orientation that they schedule, and they get to hear it from a lot of different people, which I think helps in onboarding a new person. I'm going to jump into keeping, which I know was an area that we were particularly interested in. This was our highest number. How do we retain good employees once we find them? So we found these talented people. How do we make them want to stay with us? So in thinking about this, I really have been thinking a lot about belonging and engagement. And so I'm going to share some resources that really build on those two themes, belonging and engagement. And so I think we're going to put some of these resources in the chat for you. But as we start looking at this, so we've read this book. It's called Design for Belonging, and that's one of the resources that you'll get here. And in this particular Design for Belonging, we think about everything from the invitation when somebody first joins us. How are they greeted when they walk in the door? How do we formulate meetings where every voice is heard? So how are we just creating this environment where people are included and really feel this sense of belonging? So the book that we've read was Design for Belonging. That's by Susie Wise. And so that is one thing that we've started to really think about, not only with our student journey, how do we create opportunities for belonging for students, but also how do we create these opportunities for belonging for our staff members. So the next thing we'll talk about is this Gallup's Q12. So Gallup's Q12 is a series of 12 questions that measures employee engagement. And each question is answered by employees on this 5-point Likert scale, 1 being not very engaged and 5 being very engaged. And so the survey can help organizations kind of pinpoint areas to focus for belonging and to create more employee engagement. And it can be used to measure progress over time. So if it's a survey that you do with employees annually, you would have that opportunity to chart progress, or you would identify areas where maybe a decline has occurred. So the questions, these 12 questions, are things like, I know what's expected of me at work. I have the materials and equipment to do my work right. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. My supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. My opinions seem to count. The mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. My coworkers do quality work. I have a best friend at work. These are some of those 12 questions. And so they really start to help us gauge this idea of engagement. And again, these are all questions that sound a lot like belonging. So just as we know goal setting is important for learner persistence, goal setting is also a key component in employee retention. And so we know from John Hattie's research that teacher collective efficacy is the singularly most powerful tool to support student achievement. Teacher engagement is really critical to our program's success. And Hattie and his colleagues point out that the #1 way to create a culture of collective efficacy is for teachers to see the evidence of their impact. And so some of these other things that we've listed here, like professional learning communities, getting student satisfaction feedback, these are ways for teachers to engage in discussions and to look at data that really help to demonstrate their evidence of impact, and that builds teacher collective efficacy. So we know that these factors contribute to the culture of valuing work and engagement, belonging, ownership. And we also know that these intrinsic pieces, these intrinsic factors, have more to do with work satisfaction than how much a job pays, for example. I know it's not the only thing, but it's a significant part of why people stay in a position. So I'm going to bring my piece to a close. And as we do that, I want you to just maybe think to yourself, or if you want to type in the chat here for us, something that you're thinking now that maybe you weren't thinking 4 about recruiting and retaining talented teachers. You can just type in the chat. And thank you, Laura. Like the idea of collective efficacy. Yes, definitely. So yeah, these opportunities for teachers to collaborate together and look at their data. So whether that's a professional learning community or a data dialogue, however you do that, can really demonstrate the evidence of impact. I'm going to push us forward so I don't hog up all of Dawn's time. Oh, Elizabeth, thank you. Love the concierge approach to the HR process. Yes. Oh, yeah. HR department lost her transcript 3 times. You know, sadly, that is a familiar story. So how do we help those? How do we help those people? So the next thing I was going to ask you to do before I turn things over to Dawn is just to maybe think about anything that we've heard so far today. And if you can just kind of remind yourself, what's one thing I want to take forward? And so 30 days from now is going to be, let's say, March 24th. So that's a Friday. So is there anything you can do between now and March 24th to kind of carry some of this learning forward? And then my bigger challenge is there anything you can do in the next 90 days to kind of take action on some of these things between now and May 23rd, which is a Tuesday? So kind of think about that. You don't have to publicly declare, but if you can give yourself some reminders for March 24th or May 23rd, 30 or 90 days, how you're going to bring this forward, that would be great. And then I think I will save questions for the end, because I think I need to turn things over to the fabulous Dawn Hughes, who's going to lead us in our next section here. And then I'll be back to join you at the end. Dawn?
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. You've shared a lot of great information about what's happening in California. And now I'm going to be sharing about the retention efforts that are actually underway in Illinois. So first, I would like to propose that teacher retention and student retention are closely tied together. So as you can see in the diagram on the left side of the screen right now, they each affect each other. In Illinois, we've been examining and tackling both topics in a variety of ways, and I would like to spend the next few minutes discussing what we have done on the professional development side around the topic of student retention. Towards the end of my short presentation, we will have the opportunity to engage in conversations with each other in breakout groups, so please stick around for that. So in a response to a statewide adult education decrease in enrollment following the pandemic, our Professional Development Center here in Illinois created a virtual learning community, a VLC, for teachers centered on increasing student retention. The VLC was titled Helping Students Stay and was designed to address classroom retention. This is a screenshot from that presentation in the fall of 2021. This collaborative PD opportunity addressed issues of retention that instructors can influence, and it also provided a foundation in recent research on adult education persistence. Instructors were guided to consider both their own student retention data and practical strategies that they could apply to improve those retention rates. Our first retention VLC was held in the fall of 2021, and participants earned 5 PD hours over a 6-week period. We have since repeated that PD opportunity again this past fall, This particular retention VLC for instructors focused on what the teachers, have impact and influence over. It is not systematic strategies related to retention. So there is a lot of research that we provide to our instructors during the VLC. As an example, this is from one of those research articles. In February of 2020, the Institute for Professional Development of Adult Educators in the Florida Department of Education collected surveys from 133 adult educators across Florida and reported the following in regards to this question. What are the most important practices in retaining students? You can see that the top two responses were student engagement and motivation, and also positive and collaborative teacher-student interactions. This was closely followed by multiple instructional approaches and student goal setting. In the spring of 2022, we had the opportunity to develop and present to the program administrators during our Illinois Spring Administrators Meeting. The title of that presentation was The Road to Better Retention. We began our presentation to the administrators with these questions to help frame the session. How can I support my teachers in their efforts in retaining students? And how can I, as an administrator, establish programmatic practices that support retention? In other words, what can I, as an administrator, do for my teachers so they can help improve retention? And what can I myself do to improve retention? So as a group, we looked at the national and state level retention data for adult education. Basically, the highest rate of attrition or enrollment loss in adult education classes is found early in the term, generally the first few weeks. Research shows that sometimes this enrollment loss is as high as 60 to 70%. So this is a snapshot of one of our slides from that presentation. The graphic on this slide is titled Retention Strategies Across the Student Continuum. The graphic shows 3 stages of student retention. On the left, stage 1 represents strategies to use before a student enters a class. Retention strategies in stage 1 can occur during outreach or first contact, registration, assessment, or even when they are on a roster, but classes haven't started yet. As we move along a horizontal line, stage 2 encompasses the retention strategies that are employed while the student is attending class. Then we move again to stage 3, and it branches off in 2 directions. When a student pauses class and when a student exits class. Even in stage 3, programs need to have a retention strategy in place. Stage 1 and stage 3 are highlighted now to show where we will be focusing today's discussion, on the beginning and the end. Stage 2 primarily relates to what teachers can do while students are in their class, and this was the focus of our retention VLCs that I spoke about earlier. Stage 1 of retention focuses on what a program does prior to a class starting. Communication with students is key. This may seem obvious, but how structured is your communication plan in this before class period? Do teachers get rosters in advance so they can send emails? If a support staff will do welcome and reminder calls, is it clear that that's part of their assigned duty? If teachers want to send texts because emails don't get checked as often, were students signed up to the teacher's Remind or Google Voice account at registration? These are all good questions to explore to turning a working strategy into an effective strategy. Make sure that students are contacted through email, text, or even a personal phone call. You can manage a live chat feature or a social media live chat. Encourage students to follow your program on social media at registration. Have teachers send those welcome emails and make a welcome phone call. The goal is to make the students feel like part of the class community before they even begin. We want them to get to know their teacher before class starts. It's important to provide curriculum and useful information before class too. What about an orientation, goal setting, or even a time management workshop? These could be virtual or in person, an hour long, or a series of sessions. Does your program provide an online curriculum for students to work in if they're waiting to start a new term? Perhaps Burlington English or another online program like Khan Academy. Does your program offer some type of informal gathering for students, like a book club or even a conversational group? This would be a great time outside of class to get them engaged and feel like they're part of that community. Again, these ideas and strategies center around what a program can do to support retention even before classes begin. Stage 1 is all about administrators providing support for a coordinated and streamlined communication and connection strategies beyond the classroom. This helps take some of the burden that might otherwise fall to each individual teacher, and it places it elsewhere, or at least it helps share that burden. So again, on the screen, we can see the earlier diagram of the retention strategies across the student continuum. On the right side of the screen, stage 3 is highlighted to show two different options, as I will describe. When a student stops out or temporarily withdraws from one of our classes, and when a student completes a course and is ready to transition to the next thing. Whether a student is pausing their adult education because life has interfered and they need to stop out temporarily, or whether a student has finished a specific class and is waiting for the opportunity to transition to the next level of education, what we can do to retain them in these stages is really important. One of the points Eric Jacobson makes in his research is that although lack of childcare, transportation, or healthcare may indeed lead a student to stop out, the lack of support made the decision nearly inevitable. Also in that research, the author talks about how many adult education students think they can't come back, that they aren't allowed to because they had to stop out. This is something we can address pretty simply with our messaging to students up front. So, what does your program do when a student pauses or has to stop out? What does communication look like at your program in this stage? Is there any outreach to the student? If so, what type and how often? Are there any opportunity for distance learning? Any follow-up when the next registration period begins? And what about curriculum outside of class? Are you providing any online resources to keep students engaged? What about a summer program or even a boot camp for digital literacy? Do you have presentations from transition personnel to higher level classes about bridge programming? What about referrals to partners for continued support, such as childcare, transportation, counseling, work partners? Your program's retention effort is a continual process, and each stage is affected by the others. Stage 3 is all about loss or attrition of students, which creates instability for teachers. Time and energy that teachers need to put into getting to Time and energy that teachers need to put into getting students to class and holding them until it's time for them to separate. This is time that they can't spend on instruction. So we want to make sure that this instability in enrollment doesn't translate into instability in employment for our teachers. So, as I said before, I believe that teacher retention and student retention are closely tied together. They are interconnected issues. Besides working in the field of adult education as a professional developer, I also serve on our local school board. I live in West Central Illinois in a very rural district. We have one K-12 district in our county with a total of 676 students. It takes me 1 hour to drive to a Starbucks, an hour and a half to get to a Target. Not only do I feel the strain of teacher retention in my adult education world, I also feel it at my local school district. We currently have several instructional positions at our local high school that are being filled with individuals that have been issued emergency and temporary certifications. My son graduated high school in 2020, and my daughter will graduate in May. During the tenure at our local high school, they have had a different science teacher every year since 2016. Maybe you can relate as well. According to the National Education Association, approximately 50% of new teachers in K-12 will leave the profession within their first 5 years of teaching. The level of support that teachers receive can make a huge difference in the way they feel about their job. A survey from the Center for Teacher Quality, which included a response from 32,000 teachers, revealed that support from colleagues and administration is one of the most significant factors in a teacher's decision to stay or leave the profession. By ensuring that teachers feel supported and cared for, administrators can keep teachers satisfied in their current positions. Our state has an advisory council in place that includes representation from every region of our state, and it includes administrators from the smallest programs to the largest programs, including community-based organizations and Department of Corrections. The topics that the committees investigate every year vary. This fiscal year, I'm part of the committee that is researching adult education, teacher recruitment, and retention. One question we keep asking ourselves is, how do we slow down or even stop the revolving door of our adult education instructors? While our committee is several months away from issuing formal recommendations to the state, I've listed some ideas on this slide that we are hearing repeatedly from the field. And a lot of these echo what Kathleen was saying earlier. They would like to see more full-time positions. Full-time instructor positions are far and few between in Illinois. Slowly, we are seeing some programs restructure their staffing and scheduling so that multiple part-time positions can be combined into a full-time position. This requires a paradigm shift and thinking outside of the box. One of the silver linings of the pandemic is how it pushed our field into the virtual classroom space. There is the opportunity for teachers to work both at an on-site location and remotely, or perhaps a combination of both. Benefits. While sometimes costly, the addition of benefits combined with a full-time position can aid in slamming shut the revolving door. Salary increases. I don't think there's much else to say about that one. Paid planning time. Are teachers in your programs paid for planning time? We are finding that this varies vastly from program to program in Illinois. Allow instructors to focus on teaching. Are teachers in your programs expected to assist with registration, intake, pre- and post-testing? Do these occur during instructional time? If so, perhaps staff responsibilities and duties need to be reassessed. Opportunities for career growth. Highly effective teachers are ambitious and they want opportunities to expand and grow. Are there opportunities in your program, in your region, or even in your state for leadership? All right, so in this next section here, before we go into breakout rooms, we want you to recognize that the focus of today's session is not on what teachers can do, but instead what we can do for teachers. So we've got some questions on the screen right now that we're going to be discussing with each other in conversation groups. And we want you to share some strategies that you might already have in place, or possibly some ideas that have been sparked by today's conversations. So these are the questions that we're going to be talking about in our breakout groups. The first one is, what practices can administrators implement at the program level to support teacher retention? Number 2, what can your state office do to support teacher retention efforts at the program level? And number 3, what actions can your state office take to support teacher retention from the state level? So again, you're going to be placed in some breakout rooms here in a little bit, and we would love if somebody could take notes and then share when we come back together. So Kathleen, it looks like we have about 15 minutes. Does that seem right to you for breakout groups?
Indeed it does. That's perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm just setting up the rooms and making sure we have a good split. And then from there, I'll start the rooms and give people a couple minutes notice before we close out the rooms.
Perfect. Could you
All right.
also broadcast the questions to the rooms once we're in there?
Yes, I'll put them into the chat now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And let me get those questions really quickly, and then I'll go ahead and start the rooms. I'll hand it over back to Dawn.
All right, so we had some great discussion in our group, and I have asked Phyllis if she would like to share. She shared about a pilot that they had done in Alabama, and including a counselor, and they have some results from that. So if you need to unmute her, her name is actually listed under Alex Harris. There you go.
Oh, hello, everyone. Yes, Phyllis Kelly from the state of Alabama, worked in adult education at the local level for 20 years. And during my tenure as a program director, I was blessed to attend the LEA Leadership Excellence program, and we were required to run a pilot program to impact one of our action items. And for me, it was a retention. So I hired a part-time counselor who had recently retired from a K-12 school and brought her into 2 of my campus classes and allowed her to come in, build rapport with students, write out an education plan for those students that was comprised of short-term, mid-term, and long-range goals. And she would come in sometimes only twice a month, but then if a student was struggling, she would meet with those students more often. And sometimes it was just to catch in and say hello. And sometimes it was to counsel them because barriers were arising, in their lives that was going to hinder their ability to attend class. And then sometimes it was to celebrate an MSG or some small milestone that they had earned in order to keep them motivated. And I found that when I compared the retention of those classes before the counselor was assigned to them and after, one of the classes retention improved by 20%, and the other class by just a little bit less than 25%. And that was over a 6-month period. So the first 6 months of the program year, second half of the program year, the retention increased. And so then I just wanted to run that program wide. And so program wide, I went from having about a 75% retention rate to close to 90% retention rate until the K-12 system came and pulled her back and paid her more money. Story of our lives in adult ed, right?
All right. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
Kathleen, did you have anybody in your group?
You know, we didn't ask for a volunteer. I'm going to put my very sloppy notes in the chat. I was trying to furiously take notes while we were talking. We had folks from Delaware, Minnesota, Alaska, Mississippi, Nevada in our group. And so some of our conversation really centered around state level policy and advocacy for adult education programs. We looked at recent legislation to increase teacher salaries in Delaware, I think, right, Maureen? And it didn't include adult education. We looked at policies that required teachers who are retiring not to return to public funded work for at least 6 months. So that kind of harmed some of the recruitment efforts that were in place. We talked about in Minnesota, this bill that is being talked about to pay ABE teachers on par with K-12 teachers. But the caveat is that there's no additional funding for that bill. And so the impact might be to actually reduce teacher hours even more. So they fall below a 15-hour threshold, then they wouldn't be included in this act, or would actually cut down on the numbers of teachers that you could hire, because now you're paying for benefits and you're paying more for teachers. So without additional funding, it could have a negative impact on something that they're trying to solve. So those were some of the things. I think the challenge that we talked about in Alaska was the fact that there are so many small programs. And so it's a part-time position. They're one-person programs. That teacher might be doing intake, might be teaching all subjects, and it's part-time. So those were some of the things that we talked about. So policy was the big theme of what we came up with. There's a question from Wendy for Minnesota. Is Brad still here? Brad, does Minnesota pay adult education teachers directly?
No, the teachers are paid by the providers. So the bill in the state legislature would affect contracts between school districts and those teachers. So if a teacher, though, is hired by a non-district entity, this bill would not apply to them. So that includes like our Department of Corrections, it wouldn't apply there. Any nonprofit, CBO, it wouldn't apply to them either.
Thank you. What did other groups talk about? Anybody else want to chime in?
I would just like to toss out one idea that someone in our group brought up that I had never thought of, and that's statewide marketing for recruitment of adult education instructors, similar to what we do for outreach for students to inform them about the program. There's just a lot of people don't understand exactly what adult education is and what it takes to be an instructor. So that was one idea that someone shared that I'm going to take back to my team.
That's great. Thank you, Teresa. And Alex, I see that you're saying that teachers in Alabama only have to wait 30 days after they retire to return and take a job. Yeah, so looking at models in other states and what's working in other states and how can we advocate for those in our states. Great, thank you. Anything else? Any other big takeaways? Any other questions in general?
So I think Elizabeth from Maryland is willing to share. She had a few comments in our group about professional development and leadership opportunities for teachers.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I was an adult education instructor in 2 different programs in Maryland for 7 years and recently have just transitioned into a state position. But I was just sharing when we were in the breakout rooms how, for me, what as an instructor, what helped me be retained. I guess I failed now that I took a state position as far as an instructor, however you want to look at that, but was intentional opportunities, especially on the part of the instructional specialists, to give instructors opportunities to lead professional developments, to compensate them for attending conferences and professional developments. One of my programs paid for me to go to Big TESOL 1 year and to COABE 1 year. And I think like sometimes I wouldn't have necessarily presented, but the instructional specialist came and said, hey, I see this in you. Would you be willing to present on this topic? And really, that's one of the reasons that I found out about this position that I have now, because and I didn't always get compensated, especially for the prep time for professional development that was being given, but it was an opportunity to kind of propel myself forward professionally. And I think that if you see instructors in your program and you see something in them or a specialty area that they have that they could present on, like that helps them feel valued professionally, and it also propels them forward in their professional life. So thanks for asking me to share, Dawn.
Sure, thank you so much. And then Brandy's asked a question in the chat if nobody. About other states using LACES. So I'm going to say the answer might be no, Brandy. I don't know. Nobody responded. Oh, there you've got somebody. Maureen. And Maryland. There you go. Now you've got some connections.
And Brandy, I did want to let you know, we do have a webinar recording that's available on the YouTube channel about the TBCAE toolkit that has tips in there on how to message. So I know that's not exactly the answer to your question, but maybe that's another resource that you can use for supporting your students and reaching out to them via messaging.
And
Right.
Nevada is also using LACES, and our programs have been pretty excited about using the messaging.
That's great, Nancy. Thank you for sharing. All right, are there any other questions? If you think of any, please do feel free to put those into the chat. I wanted to quickly do a poll. Oh, thank you. Long put into the chat the direct link to our YouTube channel. You can look on our playlist for our monthly webinars to find that webinar that I referenced just a moment ago. We wanted to find out if you are interested in continued support on this topic. We are always looking for ways to support the field. And if you're interested in technical assistance, please let us know. And it's always fine to say, no, maybe, not right now. We know you have lots of other things going on in your states. Right. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and end our poll. Thank you for letting us know what your needs are related to this topic. I did want to share with you before we wrap up about next month's webinar. We'll be looking at instructional strategies and resources for citizenship classrooms. We'll have our colleagues from USCIS joining us. They always have fantastic webinars, and those cannot be recorded. So I encourage you to use the link that Long shared in the chat to register so that you can join us live. That will take place on March 29th. It'll run from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern or noon to 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Again, please register. The USCIS team is always excited to help meet your particular needs. So if you could please let us know in the chat what questions you have related to this topic. We'll be sure to hand those off to the team so that they can be sure to address them.